All right, I changed audio source because I listened back to that other one and it's a little bit rough to listen to. So hopefully this is not as bad to listen to. Now I'm going to be going over the open clubs, and I'm just going to take November and December and give you guys kind of a recap on it. The trends for both November to December were relatively the same. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to share with you what we saw and the kind of direction. So in general, just keep in mind in November, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, as early as 2 weeks prior, the ad costs start getting more expensive as a lot of people in the e-commerce world are shoving gigantic budgets into Facebook. And in December, we have a very brief lull before marketers start going crazy again with Christmas. So that being said, Dearborn was at approximately 3,500, a little bit over a month over the last 2 months. So we're slightly under budget there. Part of the and in terms of reach and impressions, so we are hitting a good amount of people. We're averaging around 100,000 a month, and the reason why we see 188,000 here is as more people come into the area, as people are driving into new jobs and stuff like that, this number is going to go higher because we start to hit the people who commute into the mile radius. The overall impression amount, we're averaging hitting people 3 times in a month. So this is that bottom line of what we're looking for adequate branding. Now, if we look at lead generation and conversions, what we're going to see is this special ad for birthdays is performing very well. We've been able to start getting very affordable membership leads now, which is awesome. Dearborn is the single best when it comes to personal training leads. Now, the one problem is we've set $40 as that threshold. When we go beyond $40 per personal training lead, we are definitely very tentative to spend more per lead because we don't know what those conversion rates are. All we know is what Jim said, which was, we closed them, but he didn't have numbers, and that's a little bit concerning. Obviously, scaling personal training ads, the cost will be disproportionately more than any other type of campaign that we are scaling. So with high level, one of the things that we will be doing is getting what that conversion rate is, which is super important. And based on that, we will be able to determine if it's worth spending more than $40 per lead on personal training. That being said, we would expect a 25% conversion rate at the very bare minimum on these. So this should have made a lot of money. It simply needs to be verified. Going into East Lansing. East Lansing in general does very well on brand awareness. We have extremely high touch points with very good exposure into the local area. Lead cost. The membership leads have always been a little bit more expensive in East Lansing than anywhere else. And the reason being, we still believe because of the sheer amount of money that was put into East Lansing that we've more or less saturated it. People now are not necessarily going, oh my gosh, Crunch is completely new. Now maybe like when we have a fresh semester and people come in and there's an influx of new students, we'll see that cost drop. But right now, we still believe that there's some saturation in the area, which is putting the cost per lead above $13. That being said, lead flow is pretty good in here, and it's something that can be scaled further. The one thing, there was a couple of campaigns that were kind of interesting. So tanning was not very successful in East Lansing as an offer, which was odd, as there's a lot of people who are engaging with it. That being said, the personal training is a little bit tough here. We believe what the issue is that a lot of the content in East Lansing towards personal trainers is probably catering towards a younger demographic, and we believe that the people spending money on personal trainers in East Lansing most likely are going to be the adults in the area, those that are a little bit older. So more of a shift in content targeting the older population is going to be what we execute in January in East Lansing to get personal training leads there. Farmington. No surprise, Farmington has been difficult over the last 2 months. Spend as a result has been a little bit lower. However, the exposure is good. We've been averaging 100,000 people with 300,000 ads, which means we're still hitting that frequency of 3.0. Now, if we go into leads, you're going to see in general that the leads were fairly expensive. This is the one campaign that has been within KPIs, the birthday ad. So we are still getting inquiries there, which is good. That being said, the overall cost on membership inquiries has been high, more than double of what we would like to see. As a result, we've cut those campaigns to avoid wasteful spend. The saving grace is this. The personal training has been fairly affordable comparatively to the other locations. The reason why this is not still running was because there was content that had previous employees, and this is why we're asked to turn it off. So one of the things that we're absolutely going to be doing, and this is across all locations in January, we're going to be filming brand new content for personal training across every single location, and we'll be able to revive this. But this is extremely promising with Farmington. This is going to be our biggest focus to drive up the revenue in Farmington and get those personal training leads. As just historically from what we've seen, this shows to be the highest amount of traction that we've ever gotten on the advertisements on that club in terms of a lead inquiry. Taylor is the best performing when it comes to leads. The exposure has been great. Taylor, we're actually reaching more people per dollar than any other location, just due to the fact that that population is really tied into the content that we're posting. And if we look at lead generation and conversions, leads have been going well. A lot of inquiries here. Personal training's been a little bit expensive in Taylor, and this is a location where we believe we actually do need to focus on the younger population a little bit more and potentially even open up things like small group and partner training just based on the demographic there and from what we've seen. So a lot of the general population content has not really been working in Taylor, which is more of the content that we do have. We believe getting a little bit more niche down into something like the athletic stuff or very specific problems is going to drop that lead cost and show us the ROI. And as all the other locations, we do need to see those conversion rates to justify spending more on those personal training leads. Waterford, very good on brand awareness and exposure. This is a little bit inflated because some of Warren's ads were on here. However, all the locations with Black Friday and us allocating lead gen budget, which got expensive into brand awareness, was slightly under budget, usually about $500. And in Waterford, the one thing that we're going to see on the leads, which is interesting, is in general, Waterford is weird with how it responds to leads. This one is for Warren, so ignore that one. But while this campaign absolutely kills it, the other ones are significantly more expensive than what we're used to seeing. The budget is low, $20 a day right now, and we are working on dialing this back. But this is one of those locations where we definitely invest more into the brand awareness side, and people engage a lot on the Waterford page. However, for whatever reason, they seem to be tentative to input their information towards a membership inquiry. The personal training ads, this one in particular, has been pretty rough. Now, we did have one that was closer to the amount that we wanted, $54. It's still over what we want to spend per lead, and the overall average on this campaign was very high, hence why we paused it. Just like we mentioned on the other clubs, this is one of those locations where we have a specific plan that we're ready to execute. First week of January, we're going in and we're getting fresh content. Westland. Westland's very similar to Waterford. Great exposure all in all. Again, we're hitting about 100,000 people a month, serving about 300,000 ads, so hitting people on average 3 times. And if we go into the brand awareness, go into the lead generation, we're going to see here very good lead cost on the birthday ads. The general membership inquiries, it's been slightly more expensive than what we'd like to spend, but after playing around with it and it being relatively close to that $13 upper limit that we've set, we decided to continue to put budget into it because this is like that 10-20% cost increase that normally happens during this time of the year. So we believe that going into January, this is naturally going to lower itself and get within the range that we want. Personal training, this was a little bit strange. We believe we do need fresh content, but in majority of the leads came in November, right? And we saw good lead costs, like $24 on a lead. And particularly this campaign that had 4, this had a couple of $20, $30 leads. However, as soon as we got towards Black Friday, this fatigued very hard, and we cut this pretty quick afterward because the average became fairly expensive. That being said, just like all the other locations, we are going to be able to go in January, get fresh content for all the locations, and we believe it's going to lower the cost. So in general, in November, a lot of the locations with the CPM hikes of Black Friday saw the lead generation get outside of the bounds that we wanted. So we invested more money into brand awareness, which means we hit more people more times, and the overall cost of advertising tends to dip a little bit because those objectives are simply more affordable. You're not going after a harder objective like getting somebody to submit their information. We're seeing improvements on lead costs in December, like we would expect. In January, we should see a nice dip after a lot of the e-commerce people pull out of the market, and we'll be back to affordable leads in majority of the locations. And on that spectrum of investing mostly into brand awareness versus mostly into lead generation, we're probably going to go back more into the lead generation portion, especially with high level. So that's a recap of it. If you guys have questions, of course, just let us know. We'll be happy to answer.